Welcome, dear Internet pilgrims, to the Church of MrBeast, where the Holy Scriptures are written in clickbait, the hymns are sung in giveaway announcements, and the sermons are delivered through mind-boggling, bank-breaking challenges. Take a seat, relax, and prepare to be indoctrinated, entertained, by the life and times of Jimmy Donaldson, the Internet's very own Messiah, who may or may not be leading a cult of millions. In this deep dive, we'll take a look at how MrBeast has transcended mere YouTuber status to become the high priest of modern media. Grab your beastie robes and let's get started. Let's start with what made MrBeast famous in the first place: his absurdly generous giveaways. On the surface, it seems like a win-win. Jimmy gets millions of views, and a few lucky individuals walk away with life-changing amounts of money. But when you start peeling back the layers, it becomes clear that these giveaways are less about helping people and more about exploiting them for content. Take the infamous last to leave challenges, where contestants are put through increasingly grueling tasks for the chance to win a big cash prize. On the surface, it's all fun and games, until you realize that these people are being used as pawns in a sick game of endurance, all for the amusement of MrBeast's millions of viewers. And let's not forget the fact that these challenges often push people to their physical and mental limits, all while Jimmy sits back and watches, cashing in on their suffering. But it's not just the contestants who are being exploited. The entire concept of turning charity into content raises some serious ethical questions. Sure, giving away money is great, but when you're doing it in front of millions of people, with ad revenue rolling in, it starts to feel a little less altruistic and a lot more opportunistic. It's philanthropy with strings attached, and those strings lead directly to MrBeast's bank account. Now let's talk about the man himself. MrBeast, the leader, the myth, the potential megalomaniac. It's no secret that Jimmy Donaldson has built an empire on YouTube, amassing a following that rivals that of some small countries. But with great power comes great responsibility, or in this case, a dangerous slide into demagoguery. Jimmy isn't just a content creator anymore. He's a symbol, a figurehead, the undisputed king of YouTube. And with that status comes a level of influence that's frankly terrifying. His followers, mostly impressionable teens and tweens, hang on his every word, treating his videos like gospel and his giveaways like divine blessings. It's no longer just fandom, it's full-blown worship. But what happens when you start believing your own hype? When millions of people are telling you that you're the best, that you're changing lives, that you're the most generous person on the planet, you start to lose touch with reality. You start to see yourself not just as a YouTuber, but as something more: a savior, a messiah, a demagogue who can do no wrong. And that's where things get really dangerous. Because when you start seeing yourself as infallible, you stop listening to criticism. You surround yourself with yes men who tell you exactly what you want to hear, and you start making decisions that benefit yourself at the expense of others. It's a classic case of power corrupting, and it's hard to ignore the signs that MrBeast is heading down that path. Let's not beat around the bush. There have been some serious allegations leveled against MrBeast. And while his army of fans might be quick to dismiss them as baseless rumors, there's a growing pile of evidence that suggests all is not well in the world of Jimmy Donaldson. First, there's the way he treats his employees. Multiple former staffers have come forward with stories of grueling work conditions, unrealistic expectations, and a toxic work environment that's more sweatshop than creative studio. Some have even claimed that Jimmy himself is distant, leaving the dirty work to others while he reaps the benefits. It's the kind of behavior that, if true, paints a picture of a leader who's more concerned with his bottom line than the well-being of his team. And then there's the favoritism. It's been said that in the Church of MBeast, there's a clear divide between the inner circle and everyone else. Those who are close to Jimmy enjoy the perks of fame, wealth, and influence, while those on the outside are left to fend for themselves. It's a toxic dynamic that fosters resentment and division, and it's a far cry from the image of a benevolent leader that MrBeast tries to project. But perhaps the most damning allegations are the ones that suggest MrBeast's philanthropy is less about helping others and more about boosting his own image. We've already touched on the fact that these giveaways are more spectacle than substance, but it goes deeper than that. There are claims that some of the people who've received MrBeast's generosity have had to sign non-disclosure agreements, preventing them from speaking out if things don't go as planned. It's the kind of behavior that suggests MrBeast is more interested in controlling the narrative than in actually making a difference. Let's talk about the fans, the beasties. We've already established that these kids are more than just fans. They're disciples. But as more details emerge about MrBeast's alleged behavior, it's becoming harder to ignore the fact that this fandom is starting to look more like indoctrination. These kids aren't just watching MrBeast's videos, they're living them. They're adopting his persona, replicating his stunts, and spreading his gospel far and wide. It's like a digital version of a cult, with MrBeast as the charismatic leader and the Beasties as his devoted followers. And let's not forget the way they defend him. Criticize MrBeast online and you'll be met with a tidal wave of hate from his fan base. They'll dismiss any allegations against him, no matter how credible, and they'll stop at nothing to protect their idol. It's the kind of blind loyalty that's both impressive and terrifying, and it raises serious questions about the impact MrBeast is having on his young, impressionable audience. But here's the thing. What happens when the cracks in MrBeast's image start to become too big to ignore? What happens when the scandals become too numerous, the allegations too serious, for even the most devoted Beasties to dismiss? We've seen it happen before with other public figures, and the fallout is never pretty. The question is, how long can MrBeast keep the truth at bay before his empire comes crashing down? So what's next for MrBeast? Will he continue to reign supreme as the king of YouTube? Or will his empire eventually crumble under the weight of its own contradictions? It's hard to say. On the one hand, MrBeast has built an empire that seems almost unstoppable. His fans are loyal, his brand is strong, and his influence is only growing. But on the other hand, the scandals and controversies are starting to pile up. And as more people start to question the ethics of his philanthropy, the dynamics of his inner circle, and the way he treats his employees, it's possible that MrBeast could eventually face a reckoning. After all, we've seen it happen before. Public figures who seem untouchable, who amass massive followings and wield incredible influence, only to see it all come crashing down when the truth comes to light. And while MrBeast might be able to keep the wolves at bay for now, it's only a matter of time before the cracks in his image become too big to ignore. But for now, Jimmy Donaldson remains the undisputed king of YouTube. His fans continue to worship at his digital altar. His brand continues to grow, and his influence continues to expand. And as long as there are millions of Beasties willing to chant his name and buy his merch, the Church of MrBeast will keep going strong. So is MrBeast really a cult leader? Well, if you define a cult as a group of people who are blindly devoted to a charismatic leader, who follow his every word without question, and who are willing to do anything to be part of his inner circle, then yeah, you could make a pretty strong case that MrBeast is leading a cult. But if you're talking about a dangerous, manipulative organization that preys on the vulnerable and brainwashes its followers, well, we're not quite there yet. That being said, the signs are there, and it's becoming harder to ignore them. From the exploitation of his contestants to the toxic dynamics within his team, to the way his fans defend him with cult-like fervor, it's clear that MrBeast is walking a very fine line. And while it might all seem harmless for now, history has shown us that things can spiral out of control very quickly. So as we watch the rise of MrBeast, it's worth keeping a close eye on the cracks in his image, because if there's one thing we've learned from past cults, it's that the truth always comes out eventually. And when it does, it's never pretty. But wait, there's one more dark shadow looming over MrBeast's seemingly untouchable empire, one that's starting to cast a long and troubling shadow. The whispers of pedophilia allegations. These rumors, though still in the murky realm of speculation, are beginning to circulate, raising serious questions about the people MrBeast associates with and the potential skeletons hiding in his closet. We've seen how easily power can corrupt, and how those who rise to the top often find themselves surrounded by individuals with less than pure intentions. Could it be that MrBeast's empire isn't just built on questionable philanthropy, but on something far more sinister? Are there secrets behind the scenes that could take down not just MrBeast, but the entire church he's built around himself? These are the uncomfortable questions we'll be tackling in our next video, where we'll delve deeper into the darker side of the MrBeast empire. We'll explore the allegations, examine the evidence, and ask the hard questions that others are too afraid to touch. Because if there's one thing we know, it's that when you start digging, you often find much more than you bargained for. So, stay tuned, Beasties, because the next chapter in the saga of MrBeast is about to get a lot darker. And trust me, you won't want to miss it.